Okay. Hello and good evening to everybody, and a warm welcome to everybody on the panel with me tonight. And collectively, we're here to help you and to share with you some of our experience, some of our thoughts around how to help your child excel and succeed in an online schooling environment. So maybe before we get on to that, we can just have everybody introduce themselves, and we'll go from, I'll say, let's just pick on Rox first. Rox, let us know each as we go around the panel, where do you fit into Teneo? Where's your part of the puzzle, and how do you fit in and gel with the rest of the team? Okay.
Perfect. Hello, my name is Roxanne Clark. I am a senior phase leader, and I will be giving you that perspective on how to make your child successful.
Okay, thank you. Jackie?
I'm Jackie Van Rooyen, and I am part of the Life Smarts department, right the way from grade 7 to grade 12. I teach in the IEB school, but have also taught in the Sakai school a little bit. I suppose my role is to give us the almost guidance kind of perspective on what success is, and whether we should actually redefine success and some of the skills that are needed for our youngsters to be successful.
I think that's going to be a nice starting point there, Jackie. Paula?
I'm Paula van Berkel. I oversee the academics for all the schools in Teneo. My background was special needs education. I had the privilege of moving with a group of kids from foundation phase all the way through to FET. And it's a great honor to be able to implement things beyond academics in helping to promote and make successful citizens, which is what online schooling can really, really do.
Okay. Well,
and then this is Jackie.
Hello. Hi. Hello, everybody. Yes, this is the other Jackie speaking. And it's my immense privilege in life to be able to lead this amazing team of people, not just on the panel, but all the teachers and the academic teams that work on making the school experience something that can lead to success. And so I am going to loop back now to Jackie, because when we were preparing for this, Jackie has some very firm ideas about what success is. And I think that they are shared, or I think that I do share them. But just for the sake of starting the conversation, the traditional idea of excellence and of success is not necessarily correct. I think that the thing that we need to question is that it's not that we are opposed to success or to excellence, but it's what that comes down to at the end of the day for an individual child. And every child is an individual. So to just take out a single idea and apply that to each child is actually doing them a disservice. And the traditional idea, you can add to this, ladies, is that a child gets straight A's for at least 12 subjects, and they are popular. They are always in the top leadership structure of anything that's going. They excel at sport. Everything the child puts their hand to, they are successful at, and there's very little effort that goes into it because they just sort of breeze through life and achieve all these things. They never do anything wrong. They never make mistakes, and that's success, because ultimately that leads to driving the best car on the market. They always eventually they can afford the best clothes, designer labels. They live in the best suburbs, in the best house. And that is the measure of success that we want for all our children. All right, so I'm being quite extreme there. because I think that it's something we need to unpack and to say, what do we want to be our children to be successful in, at, and ultimately as a human being. All right, so Jackie, if you want to start then, you can challenge my statement.
Oh, I actually thought you were reading my CV there, Jackie. For a moment, I thought you were reading my portfolio. The smart, bright, brilliant, sporty, not at all. But definitely successful. The one word that does stick to me out of all of those is successful. But if you put me in a room full of my peers, they probably wouldn't pick me, an online school teacher in her almost 50s, not married, with no children, and they would say that I don't drive the best car. Occasionally it needs new tires and all sorts. There's no service plan. I mean, you know, you probably wouldn't say I'm successful, but that's the word that sticks to me, because according to the measure that I have set for myself, I deem myself to be very successful. And I think there's the problem. The world only wants to celebrate achievement according to world standard. They don't also want to celebrate effort and acknowledge that different people desire different standards in terms of achievement. And so I think that's something that is so, so important. Our youngsters want to feel successful, but we have to redefine success for them. And I think that's a very, very valuable conversation to have as a family, because I think your family values play a huge part in it, especially in an online school. You are able to create the levels and the measures of success for your student, because there isn't a prize giving, and there isn't a sports day, and there isn't a prefect badge at the end of the day. So as a family, how do you allow your child to succeed, set goals for them to actually to be stretched, something to strive for, but also to create a kind of an understanding of success that is measurable and desirable for your family and for your child, individuals within the family. So I often talk to parents, and one of the things they say is, I'll say to them, what is it if I could give you one wish for your child? And most parents are going to say, I want my child, I just want them to be happy. And it's interesting how happiness for parents is something they say, but in the next breath, at parents' evening, they'll arrive and they'll say, why are my child's marks like this? And they're deeply dissatisfied with their child's marks. And I think it's something that subconsciously happens. We create expectations. We have them. So if I say to you, we're going to go on holiday, and you say, I just want to have a good time. And I say to you, okay, let's talk. We get in the car and we start driving, and I say, let's talk about your expectations of this holiday. And you say, no, I've got none. So I say, well, what do you think we're going to do? Listen, within half an hour, you're going to express some of the things you want to do. I want to go to the beach. I want to sleep in late. Nobody must wake me before 8 o'clock. And I'd like breakfast in bed. And actually, the more we think about it, the more there is a subconscious layering in of expectations. So all parents who say, I want my child to be happy, happiness is a side effect, not a goal. And so the side effect of what? Of expectations being met. And Brene Brown said it so well. She said, expectations are resentments under construction. Because if you don't clarify expectations, they can lead to resentments or shame for the person who doesn't achieve those expectations, shame and also resentments, because perhaps parents have different expectations of what success looks like for their child. So it may sound controversial, but don't just say you want your child to be happy. Of course we want people to be happy. We want them to thrive. But what does that mean? How do you define that? And I think success has to be radically redefined according to each individual, so that it doesn't lead to disappointments and shame.
Yes, and I think that, Jackie, just the other part of that parental expectation has been, I think when we were at school, the world outside of school was very different, and what we were expected no longer exists. It's changed fundamentally, and that to define success as being a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, an engineer, because I know that those are sort of, those are the careers that people sort of aspire to have their children go into. And I've seen a lot of children just like they could be that, but they're not happy with being that. And I think that this generation of children, and certainly the generation that I've taught, and now looking at what they're doing and what they're doing with their life, they don't always conform. But when you say the output of that is happiness, I see happiness, and they are being true to themselves. And I think that that's also important for a lot of this generation, is that they are being freed from those restrictions to be successful by being who they really are. And they're starting to shun that and start going, I don't need all of the trappings that go with perceived success. This is what success is to me. I want to be healthy. I want to live a balanced life. And I increasingly, I see that in a lot of students that I've taught that are coming back, and like those are the core things they're looking for in terms of success. But in an online school, I think that success, whether it's in an online school or in a physical school, no matter what we do in life, I believe it is the sum total of a lot of little things that consistently get put together. It's about showing up. It's about doing it time and again and again and again, and the repetition of that, of meeting the small deadlines, the little sound bites that ultimately lead to that whole picture and everything that we achieve there. So I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on that, because like studying and certainly the curriculum is set up in that way, that it's an incremental building blocks that get put in place. And if we can teach our children to achieve that, that's, I know that's my son at the moment, is our challenge. He can get the A's easily with minimal effort. I know that, but it's about sustainability, about sustaining that achievement. It's about the consistency that goes with that, and how do you achieve that? I don't know, Paula, would you like to weigh in here on your ideas of success and how that can be achieved for children, and how as parents we can equip and create a home and an environment in which that can work?
I think it's really important. I know I can say that most of us as children, and probably those of us who have been parents, we have had as a child somebody else's ideas, dreams put forward for us, which was done with good intention. Maybe it was missed opportunities from a previous generation and wishing that for your child. But that doesn't always work, especially when you're the child and on the receiving end, and your personality and your abilities don't quite match that. And then you have the emotion of, I want to please my parents, but actually this is really difficult for me. And I think it's really, really important that parents are aware of that, and that parents enable independence. We were talking about independence the other day and saying what an awesome thing independence is. And it is really something that we need to instill in our youth now. There are so many options. There are so many directions that a child can follow, that it's overwhelming. So you need to be able to say, okay, I need to make a plan. I need to be able to make a decision. I need to understand what's good for me, and I need to know how things work together. So in a way, it's going back to basics. What's good for the child? What do you need to do? How do you think? What are the steps that you need to follow to reach a certain thing? And when you look at the curriculum and all the subjects that the kids have, I think I would have run a mile as a child, but we survived. We made it. But it's such a wonderful opportunity to say, okay, let's have a look. You've got, say we are in FET phase, you've got 7 subjects. Now we've got to get all 7 of those subjects working together. We can't do everything on one day for every single subject. We need to have a look and we need to break it up. And I think it's that breaking up into manageable steps and looking at the time that you have and getting an idea of what the big picture is. What really astounded me as an adult when I started teaching was, I know that this child has covered this curriculum in the previous grade, but they come to me in the next grade and it's like they've never heard what you're saying. They've never heard the terminology, but you know, because you've got fellow professionals who taught them that. So what is it? And in speaking to them, it's sort of come through that, oh, if we did that last year, we wrote the test and that's finished. Now we push it away and we need to carry on now. If you think about maths, for example, you learn how to count in preschool. Those skills that you develop in preschool, you use them every single year and into adulthood. Each time with your experiencing, you're adding another layer onto it. And we need to appreciate that. We need to often make the links for the kids themselves. What I really, really like, and as a therapist coming through on this, is the generalizing skills that online gives the opportunity, the generalizing opportunity that online schooling gives to kids. So if we have a look at, say, test time, every single subject has things that are done exactly the same during writing a test. So they're getting lots of practice to do that across all the subjects. And that is such a wonderful way of saying, oh, you know what I learned in history applies to geography. What I learned in maths applies to everything. And what I've learned in my languages is part of the whole. So it's really important to explain or promote the sense that the child is a part of a whole and that they are part of their knowledge, and that each stage of knowledge is building towards skills, and it's taking us towards where we want to be one day, where we really know ourselves, where we are able to do what we're good at and be the best that we can be. Mm-hmm. That for me as an educator and a therapist is when I see somebody achieving and that click and that moment of, wow, I've got this now. It's goose flesh time.
Yes. Rox, what do you think our children need to know about succeeding? What is the if you were given just 3 minutes to quickly record a message and you had to get to the kernel of it and leave that behind for the children, what would that be? And then we'll also join you and add some to that conversation. What would be the kernel of the kit, the success kit that you would give them?
Perfect. And I think I'm going to touch a bit more on the practical side of things, just in that sense of finding that success in this environment. And I think as a parent, it is so important in this environment to be involved, but be involved in the correct way. We all know the term helicopter parenting, and it is not beneficial to our children of today at all. And it is something that we seem very good at doing these days. And so my advice is to be involved, to have those discussions around the dinner table, understand what your child has to do to be successful, because in this environment, there isn't a teacher on their case all day. If they were in a physical school, the teacher would tell them, this is for homework, this is what you have to do. Remember, my lovey, write your test in this book, hand this in, you didn't hand it in, sit down, you're going to do it for me now. In this environment, that independence is required, but with parent guidance, with that parental influence. And it is important that you monitor your children, you set boundaries for your children that they have to achieve, and leave them to also reach that independent stage, because it is so beneficial, and you can produce a very successful child, a child who is ready for adulthood and for that independence that is required if you manage this system in a very good way. And so that is really my advice. And encourage your child to be present, because it is very easy for children to become lost in this online system. If your child is present in class, camera on, taking part, discussing, this system, these online systems can be extremely beneficial to your child, and your child can make it work very, very well for them, because they don't have that influence of peers in the classroom. They don't have that distraction, and they don't have that insecurity either. Your child can really reach their full potential by sitting at home in their comfortable space, just by being present and taking part.
Absolutely. And the parents are so supported in an online space with the Parent Observer login. And I really so strongly recommend that for all parents. It's in an online space, the digital systems give you so much insight and support to help your child. And it's the things like what has to be submitted, the to-do list on the calendar, helping them to do that. And there's something that Canvas does, by the way. If you clear your to-do list, there's a panda. You'll score panda confetti, and like I want to know who the kids are that get that. If anybody has ever achieved that, because if you can clear your to-do list, it will, and there's a golden panda as well, by the way, which I believe is globally is very seldom achieved by any student. And so the point there that I really want to say as parents, in helping building onto what Rox said there, know what your child has to do, but don't do it for them. And the other one, if you've helped them and you've said you've been supportive in saying, your task needs to be in on Wednesday, and they miss that deadline, that in itself is a learning curve. It's a consequence of that. Allow that consequence. And it might seem horrific to you that you are, but no, you're not. You're not failing your child. You're actually teaching your child that there's a consequence, and there's a consequence to everything we do. There's a consequence when you hand it in on time, and there's a consequence if you don't hand it in on time. I don't know about any of you, but any of your bosses happy when you don't meet the deadline and you don't deliver, and maybe in 3 years' time you'll get around to it. Those are the skills that our children and I don't think any of you, when your child is employed one day, is going to be writing letters to the boss saying, "Oh, please excuse him, we didn't have electricity last night." It's like, well, that's a reality, but you knew that wasn't going to happen. So it's not the consequence of just one night. It's the consequence of a number of events that have taken place. So the Parent Observer login is something I really strongly recommend. In fact, I'm getting to the point of wanting to say you can't, if you don't have the Parent Observer login, we can't help you, because you could have seen so much. It's an open day, 24/7. Ladies and gentlemen, go and help get that Parent Observer login for yourself, for your child. It just helps you just gives you the edge there. And a child who, there's also documented fact, I'll come back to Jackie, but that there's documented fact that the children who succeed at school are the parents who are involved in a healthy, balanced way. They're the parents who go to the parents' evening. They're the parents who take an interest, who talk about what they're learning at dinner table. And the simple reason is you are placing value on your child's education and their learning journey by being interested in it. You're endorsing what they're learning. You're not just sending them to school with shame, you have to go and learn that stuff. Well, then you shouldn't be sending them to school because you're undermining what they're trying to achieve. But be involved with your child's, just supporting them. What do you need? Do you need anything? Would you like me to listen to do something? Would you like to share it with me? And I promise you some of my best. Now that my boys are older, my best are the conversations we have in the car after school, because then they're trapped, okay? And it's around the dinner table in an online space. It's around the table. It's in those spaces where you can have those conversations about the book that they might be reading and themes in that book, or maths. I'm astounded sometimes by what they actually know. But all of those cumulatively help you add up to be a supportive parent, and that leads to success as well. Because your child is seeing that this has value, and it's not, and don't share the horror stories from your own childhood and your school stories, the ones that, yeah, the naughty ones, yes, but, some of the more negative stories, it's
the mischievous ones.
The mischievous ones, yes, absolutely. I mean, what would, like as a teacher, life would be boring if we didn't have the mischief.
Yes.
But Jackie, so just coming back to you there about children who are successful, what are your thoughts about? They become successful because their parents are supporting their journey.
I think if parents and a child have got the same understanding, they've got an expectation that's similar, that's worked through and discussed, they're headed in the same direction, I think you can then start to plan the journey. And I think you plan little rest stops, and you plan your direction. You plan which way. Are we going to go the scenic route? Are we going to take the quickest way to get there? And I think that's a whole process. So definitely parents who model good mental health, parents who model good organization, parents who model things. We tend to think that our young people stop looking at us in terms of those things, but they are learning from you. You're telling them to be good task managers. You're telling them to manage their time well. You're telling them to fit everything on a calendar, and you don't do it yourself. So I have a little principle, and I do lots and lots and lots of projects, lots of life orientation projects, because I won't ask a child to do something I'm not prepared to do myself. So I'm about to start a couple of phys ed tasks and exercise programs. And you know why? Because they want to see me modeling. I'm not even a parent, but I am an adult in their life, and they want to see me modeling that. If I'm saying this is good for you, then it must be good for me too. So I think modeling it is very essential. And I think we've got to add the word resolutions, so directions and expectations, commitment and consistency. I think those things, but add the word, I've added the word in front of it, courageous resolutions, because some of them need to just push us a little bit, so that we have to take heart, that we have to dream big, that we have to think, I can get a C. Could I aim for a B? We need to have courage in what we're dreaming for our lives as well. So it needs to have that little bit of motivation. If it doesn't scare you, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. And it mustn't frighten you to paralysis, but it must just almost excite fear, that kind of one you're not quite sure if you're excited or afraid, that adrenaline, right? That's the one we want. And then commitment. It takes courageous commitment. And in our online space, I've met some very courageous young people. There are people with different abilities. There are people with concessions. There are people with mental health challenges. There are young people who are who have struggled and have had quite negative experiences, some of them in the schools, face-to-face schools, brick and mortars, and they're courageous. They're courageous to start in an online school. They're courageous. They join us in grade 12. They join us in grade 11. It's not easy to start again. And that's what we want, is courageous commitment, courageous resolutions, and then courage, the courage to get up. I had a little statement behind me today that says courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it just says, get up today and try again. And that's what courageous commitment and courageous consistency is. Man, I did such a bad job. My time management is terrible. Do I have the courage just to get up again and try again today? And I think one of the best things you can teach your kids to do is to ask for help. So I used to go on a camp, and one of the things we did, try to sit at dinner table, seat your kids at the dinner table. If you don't eat at the dinner table, they might be surprised. But have a meal at the dinner table and set it out really beautifully, like set the dinner table and have everything in the middle, right, with serving spoons. And then say to everybody, right, we're going to have a meal, but none of you may put anything in your own mouth. And you may not offer something, you may not offer, so you may not ask for something. So that's it. You may not ask, and you may not put anything in your own mouth. So see how you have a meal, and you've got this absolutely smorgasbord of deliciousness if you're a great cook, and have everybody sit there, and they're not allowed to ask, and they're not allowed to put anything in their own mouth. And just watch what it does for people. It's the most interesting thing as we figure out, if I'm going to get food, I'm going to need to say to you, what can I give you? Would you like some of this? Would you like some of the mashed potato? And then they can say yes, and you dish up for them. And actually, it's a very odd, awkward experience. For introverts like me, it's horrible. But I tell you what, in doing that experience, it's an eye opener. I need to sometimes I think everybody knows what I need. Sometimes I think the teacher knows that I need extra help. Sometimes I think that the teacher would understand, but I haven't told the teacher. Sometimes I need help from mom and dad. I don't know how to ask. And so I think one of the things we could really gift our children with is the ability to learn that sometimes we can't experience the joy of a meal if we don't know how to ask for help, and if we don't know how to offer. Those two sides to that thing. How do I offer my child help without actually eating for them? How do I let them ask without feeling humiliated and awful? We all have needs. And if we're going to meet those needs, we need to learn the balance between asking and when to ask. You know, for a teacher to know, there is nothing nicer than when a child actually approaches you themselves. I love it when they say, dear ma'am, I have not managed my time and I need an extension on this task. And when it doesn't come from a parent, everything in me says, this is courageous. This is courageous. This child is taking ownership. And I love that. Ask mom for help. Don't write the letter. What should I say to this teacher? And help them write the letter. That's how we equip our young people. Role model it. Learn to ask for help yourself. As adults, we're terrible at that. So yes, modeling it, I think, Jackie, is so important.
Jackie, it's the boy and his horse, Charlie Maxey. What is the most? I saw it the other day. What is the most courageous thing you've ever said? And he stops and he thinks for a little, and then he says, "Help." And that's exactly it. Success comes from it. It's not always. It's not something. Success is not achieved in isolation and alone either. And we are also part of other people's success. I think that yes, but it's not just
knowledge. I've reached a point where I don't have an answer. How am I going to find an answer? And it's so easy as a teacher and a parent just to give the answer. So that's another trick.
What do you think? Yes.
Never answer the question with an answer. Answer the question with another question that is going to lead you towards, or lead whoever you're helping towards where they need to go.
And when you've asked it, stop and listen.
Yes.
that's the other one, that we too quickly move on to the next thing, and we don't give that time and that space for that thinking and that answer to come through. And it's also to say, my standard question when my boys get into the car after a match and they lost the match, whether they lost the match or yes, we won, is always, so what did you learn? And initially they used to look at me with, what did I learn? What, Mom, we just got slaughtered. We got slaughtered. And you want to know, what did I learn? No, success comes from measuring what you did, reflecting on it, and going, yeah, well, if the team had worked together better, and if we had cooperated better, we wouldn't have missed as many opportunities. Or if I had showed up more, or if I'd been more committed, whatever the reflection might be, or then it's easier to reflect on, to learn from your success, but it's more lasting to learn from your failure.
Yes,
And I
and I think Jackie, sorry, Paula.
No, carry on, Rox.
I think, Jackie, as parents, even as teachers, when our children fail academically, we come down very hard on them. And I think it's important that we take a step back sometimes and we help our children learn from it. My child failing maths in one term is not the end of the world, actually, and they don't need to see it that way either. How can we fix it? Is a better way to deal with it. How can you improve? What support do you need? And let's help them solve it.
At exactly that point of feeling disappointed with what they've achieved, they don't need your disappointment. They need your support. No. They need you to be there to say, so what went wrong? What didn't work? How do we fix that to stop that happening next time? And you work into that space. Yes. That is so critical. Is that you don't become the person who kicks them another time when they're down, because trust me, they already know that. And no matter how they are showing their disappointment, it might be indifference, it might be bravado, it might be tears and quiet and a kind of really like they withdraw from everything. You've got to find that way to let them know that it's okay. That this is okay.
We all fail.
We do.
We all fail at
if
some point in life.
If we don't fail and we don't learn how to fail, I don't like the word. If we don't make mistakes and we don't learn how to deal with mistakes that we've made, we are never going to extend ourselves. We're going to continuously remain in the stagnant.
When they climb Everest, and when they set out to climb Everest, Everest is not achieved in a single trip up. There are all sorts of things that are within your control. There are things that are outside of your control, like the weather, like all sorts of things that happen. And it starts with acclimatizing at base camp. And sometimes they get to just before the summit and they have to go down these two base camps to regroup, rethink it through, regather everything before they can actually get back up to the top. And it's one step at a time. And the other thing that I remember attending a talk, I think it was Andre Bredenkamp, and he said that last bit to the summit, you can take 3 minutes for a single step while you just gather your oxygen and you get together. And that's the toughest time. And that's when you've got to be kindest to yourself. And that's when we need to, as parents, be extra kind to our children. Firm. Kind doesn't mean weak and a washover, and just allow that. But that's important that our children know that we're holding them accountable, but I'm sorry, I'm hearing some noises coming in.
Jackie's is echoing a bit.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So thank you. I think that we we've covered a number of things that will be food for thought. And any final statements you'd like to make?
No,
I think we should add, sorry, Rox, but I think we should maybe redefine success and then redefine failure as well. Having spoken through this, maybe we need to also redefine success as being, what we want them to achieve, but also redefining failure, dropping that word completely and allowing it to be a learning experience for everybody. Just don't let any of those things that are setbacks perhaps or challenges define your worthiness, because succeed or fail, meet the expectations or the measurements, you're still worthy. And that's important. Our kids need to know they're loved and supported and encouraged no matter what.
And I also think that it's really important that as adults, we don't project our stress onto our children. I have a child who gets very stressed, but I really try very hard not to impose additional stress that's mine into the situation. And I think that is something that as parents, we're thinking, oh, we've got to get this done, we've got to sort this out, we've got to do it in a hurry. But you know how to read and write, you know how to do your maths already. We need 12 years of education to get to a matric level. We need to give the kids that space to find that level, to find the skills, to develop the skills through that. We can't get to the end point when they're in grade 1 or grade 2. They're not there yet. They've got lots of development to do, physical, emotional, integration, coordination, they're all sorts.
I have a child who doesn't stress enough. Like she's at the other end of the spectrum. Like, sometimes I think, oh, you're too chilled out. Yeah. Maybe that is the healthiest way to do it. And
I'm thinking
sometimes it is, definitely.
It's not. I can't push that into a space of, it's got to be. He's got to be drawn into that himself. Yeah. Rox?
I think for me it is just be present in your child's life and see your child for who they are. Listen to your child. They are telling you who they are, and they need to be a successful person for themselves, not for what we wish and dream for them. It's good to have those wishes and dreams, but see your child for the person and that they are becoming, because that is how you find success with your child, by hearing them and seeing them and understanding them.
Yes.
Celebrate everything
Yes.
with it.
And in a world, Rox, in a world that where they are being forced to, they're forming their identity, but in a world that is forcing them to compare themselves with others all the time, keep reflecting themselves back at them, to allow them to realize that you're proud of them. Say it. Don't just think it. Tell them that you love them. Don't just think it. Say it.
Show it.
Those are the things that they need from you. They need their own identity affirmed, and they need to be able to discover it. So I think that ultimately, because it's not just about academic success. I want a child who is balanced, who has emotional maturity, compassion, who looks after themselves and looks after other people, doesn't sacrifice themselves at the expense of other people. That's the complete whole person that you are looking to create. Someone who knows how to set their own boundaries, whatever those might be. At the end of the day, it's not just the academic achievement, because a child who gets 95% and who might be super talented, I've seen that in the art room time and time again. Super talented child who will just waltz in and create a masterpiece and put it down on the table. And another child who has slogged and applied everything you've taught, has made mistake on mistake on mistake, and ultimately achieves something really worthwhile. You can't compare the two. They are incomparable, and the final output is still a work of art, still a masterpiece. And so let's do that, and let's be that for our children, because that's the measure of success, especially in their academic and their learning journeys that they are going on. So thank you for being here tonight. This has been interesting, and I hope that we've been helpful to our audience and that they can take away some of the things and start to apply them in their lives and in their children's lives. All right. So thank you very much to everybody. Good night.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.